Hello, fellow Araxians. Today we are going to be diving into part 2, the micro flow of battle. But first, the usual disclaimer. Macro, micro, and spawn system are a triumvirate. If they don't all work, the whole thing collapses. I understand that it's ingrained in our minds after 4 years of playing this game that fights are almost always uneven. It's almost a feature at this point. But I assure you it can be addressed, and the macro can flow into the micro, which can flow into the spawn system. What you're watching here is the worst offender of the micro flow, the biolab. And while it's the most glaring here, if you start paying attention, you'll see the same patterns at tower bases, tech plants, amp stations, large outposts, and small outposts. It's pretty pervasive. It's funny to watch the yell chat meta in these bases. The first day, a guy on the defending side is talking about how he loves these intense biolab fights where 96 versus 96 clash in a tight area. And literally the next day, I saw that guy attacking a 96 versus 96 biolab complaining about how awful these bases actually were. And that's the problem with the micro flow. The bases are set up to favor one side or the other. Let's go over an example in Quartz Ridge Camp to see how we fix this. You'll notice this time around I took away their ability to cap around and cut off the base. As PlanetSide 2 bases go, I think Quartz Ridge Camp is really well designed, so I'm making the decision to force people to fight through the base. The ability to so easily change the flow of battle is a nice little feature of the Hex Lattice hybrid. But anyways, VS has gained their requisite adjacency to Quartz Ridge Camp and are preparing their assault. First, the micro flow now goes in the same direction as the macro flow. Spawn points are now capturable at the north and south end of the base, that is the C and A point. The flow continues inside the base just like it does outside through the hex system. The vehicle dominant field battle ends and naturally flows into an infantry battle when that northern C point is captured, giving the VS a hard spawn. Each point in the base has an associated charge. This effectively creates a microlattice inside the bases. VS can't just gal drop an A point and take away the spawn before the fight's even begun. They must naturally flow through the base. The capture timer for the base is gone. The VS will control the facility once they take all the points from the TR. The best case scenario capture timer is now controlled by increasing or decreasing how long it takes to flip a control point. The battle now flows back and forth naturally. The TR will either repel the VS by pushing up north and taking their hard spawn back, or the VS push all the way south and capture the A point, removing the TR's hard spawn. In this manner, there is no more spawn room camping. The fight generally ends when one faction takes all the spawn points, and the territory actually flips sides once all points are controlled. Now in this example, the VS decided to just make a beeline down the middle to try to cut off the spawn. That could work, but the TR played them and went around and backcapped their spawn point. So even though you've added more restrictions in terms of flow, you haven't removed strategic depth. Once the VS take the base, it's back to a field battle and the VS can continue pushing south, or if the TR rallies, they can take the A point again, get their hard spawn, and push back through the facility. Now our discussion on microflow comes at the perfect time. Daybreak is looking into rolling out hard spawns for attackers. The only problem is the current spawns are less defensible than Sunderers and don't take into account the macro or micro flow of these bases. At Quartz Ridge, for example, you're still better off just dropping a Sunderer at the tried and true spot near A point. It's always tough to tell how finished they think the features on the PTS are. There's been a lot of situations where the community voices some real concerns about what's on the PTS, yet it still gets pushed to live and then later fixed. As long as what's on PTS is revision 1 of about 20, they're on the right track. The control points for the hard spawns need to be in the natural flow of the infantry battle. Making vehicles more relevant is an important goal. But if you involve them in the control point for the infantry spawn, that's no different than a Vanguard blowing up a Sunderer. Their domain is the open field battles, and they should be improved out there. So the big thing you need to take away with the microflow is you cannot have bases that have spawn rooms that are designed to give the defenders an advantage. Now, whenever I say that, I hear this justification. We need these bases to defend against Zergs, right? Defenders need a place to fall back to and set up fortification. The problem is, this is why the Zerg forms in the first place. There are bases that you have no chance of taking unless you are in A, a very coordinated group, which is not the majority of PlanetSide, or B, have a wild population imbalance in your favor. It is in effect a type of Cold War. Each side ramps up its population arsenal on any specific lane until the results are catastrophic for both sides. These bases become so coveted that a faction either attacks it with overwhelming forces and takes it, or they are stopped by an equal or more overwhelming force because they cannot risk losing it. So you end up with eternal, stagnant, low-performing fights. So next time you're out there farming up a tower or a biolab, please stop and think about someone that's not a veteran player. You know how to bend these fights to your advantage. You can find the farm even if the fight's not going anywhere. But these bases are a disaster for player retention. Anyone that's new to this game is going to get stuck in this meat grinder, and they are going to walk away and never look back. That is where I'm going to have to leave it for this week. I wanted to get to these single control point, small outpost battles that are the horrible experience of seeing how long you can survive frag grenades, sticky grenades, EMPs, flashes, conks, C4, canisters, and furies, but we just don't have time. Hopefully you can see how applying microflow changes to these small bases, adding more points within them, and making the fight go through the base, rather than it have it be a fight where you try to hang on for dear life for 4.5 minutes on a tiny little point, will drastically improve the experience. And stay tuned for the next one. That's when we dive into the spawn system. Because if you have 96 plus versus a 1 through 12 on a lane, it doesn't matter how good your macro or micro flow is.